Hey guys, Ill Factor here, and recently been getting a lot of requests from Beat Academy artists and just people all over the world asking what's a great way to kickstart my music, especially for this year. What's a good way to just get my music out there? And I've thought about putting an EP together, and if you're not familiar with what that is, that's just a collection of 5 to 6 songs. Putting an EP together and launching it out there is definitely one of the greatest ways that you can do that, build an artist identity, and get your music out there in the world. But for some people, it can be very overwhelming for one song, let alone 5 or 6 songs. So I partnered up with a good friend of mine, Graham Cochran, from the recordingrevolution.com, and we have put an EP together ourselves. So it was a great opportunity to make some great music. But also, we've documented the process and actually are showing you step by step of the EP creative process, everything from songwriting to the lyrics, the production, mixing, mastering, and then what to do when all that is done and how to get your first 1,000 streams and strategic planning to actually build a fan base around that launch. So we're super excited about this. And I wanted to give you a sneak peek of what to expect from this course. So you can click the link below if you want more information and get on the waiting list for this program.
So now at this stage, we have the songs in a demo format where the song skeleton is laid out and already arranged, and we're starting to think on some lyric concepts and directions for the song itself. And it's at this part where I start to head back into the project files and add additional production just to beef up the overall production of the song, and then hand it over to Graham to mix and get ready for mastering so that we can share this music with the rest of the world. But there's this tricky balance of how do you avoid overproducing? How do you not add too much to the demo where you lose the overall vibe and the feel of the demo? But yet you don't want to leave the demo the way it is because you still feel like there's some things that need to be added. Well, one thing that I found helpful is just to get a list together and just away from your computer, away from your production environment, step away from that and write down on a sheet of paper or your phone or whatever, while listening to the demos, at least the top 5 things that you feel would consider this song to be finished. This is going to help you avoid overproducing. And because the thing is, when you're in a loop and you're looping certain sections and you're just tinkering around with the songs, you can fall into the trap of just adding things for the sake of just adding things. So if you're away from the environment and you just write down simply, what are my top 5 things that I need to add where I officially feel like the song would be complete? Maybe you just have a guitar riff that you put down and a vocal melody, and it's just singer-songwriter and a guitar type of thing. Well, in that case, if it's just really minimalistic production to it, meaning just an instrument and your vocal, write down what are some things that would really make this song feel finished. Is it a polished mix? Maybe a master? And if that's the case, then yeah, those are the 2 priority things that then you're off to go. Maybe it could be, I need to add some background oohs and ahs in this specific session. Be very specific. Don't want to be broad in the sense, well, it just needs to sound better, right? You got to be very detailed and specific. So for instance, this track could really use some help with layering the main riff that's going on, maybe some electric guitars during a pre-chorus. Things like that can be very helpful when it comes to transitioning from demo to fully finished production on a song. So what I'm going to do in this video, I'm going to walk through a couple things that I've done to add productions to our songs. Different takes here. I'm going to take a look at 3 of the songs in the EP and show you different things that I've done to kind of finalize the production without overstepping that demo vibe and feel. So here's the song Myth of You. So we start with the drums. And then we have this bass riff. Now, those are the 2 main pillars and the foundation of the song. I mean, everything was kind of written around that. But the thing is, what we had was just the drum groove and this bass line. So what I've done is, additionally, to add some more beef and bite to the drums, I've layered the drums with an extra kick and snare. Now, here's the reasoning behind that. See, the drums itself it didn't have any distortion. So here's the drum groove by itself with no distortion. and it still works, but adding the overdrive here from Ableton Live adds some nice character to it and an overall crunch that I really liked. Now that was a good enough state for us to write to, so Graham just picked up the bass guitar and plugged it in and started writing this bass line, and here it is without the distortion. And then we went ahead and put some fuzz distortion on there. And I'm using the Reason Rack plugin. So this is actually like using an effect from the Reason, the DAW Reason, in my Ableton Live session. So it gave this really cool distorted tone that both of us are like, yeah, that's cool. Let's keep moving. But with the distortion on the drums, you tend to lose some of the low end and the punchiness to it. So I went ahead and layered that with an extra kick. So here's now introducing the new kick. And the same thing with the snare. So I just started to layer. I added an extra layer of kick and snare just to get the drums beefed up and a little bit more in your face. So that's one thing that was added once the song was already done. So I've done that in the process, just overall beefing the drums. Then next, we have the piano riff. So the song, the bass line was, this was the whole song, this whole loop here. And then there was this piano riff that I played over that, just messing around, that really became such a key essential element to the song. It kind of just solidified, yeah, this is a great vibe. So the piano riff, I didn't affect it afterwards. I just actually kind of manipulated it during the writing of that riff. So what we have here is a Contact library. I'm using the Una Corda, which is a piano library. And I'm going to go ahead and bypass all the effects so you can hear the piano by itself. So we have an EQ, a reverb directly inserted onto the piano, an over-the-top multi-band compression preset from Ableton. And then we have some chorus and a little bit of compression from the Reason Rack plugin, and then a little bit of EQing right there. So this is the piano by itself. Nothing out of the ordinary, it's just a regular piano. And so putting the reverb on there directly adds some really cool dimension space. And just a little bit of that over OTT multi-band compression. This was just really just kind of squeeze a little bit of the mids and the highs. And that makes it just a little bit more plucky. But the whole the character of this sound really comes in from this chorus. As you can see here, there's a lot of that chorus on there. And that just took me to this headspace of like the early 90s, that 1992 through 1996, where a lot of the guitars in the grunge era had this type of chorus on there. And so immediately when I heard that sound, it just took me back to that place. And it just felt like, yeah, that's the kind of vibe we want to go for. So those elements there make up the cornerstone of this song. And so we actually started just writing lyrics around that and started coming up the groove. So everything else just became, how to actually fill up the space without taking away from the feel that we got from the demo. So right now the elements that I'm playing are the demo elements. Those are the drums, the distorted bass, the piano, and the guitars and leads. So the guitars, what we have going on is just a scratch demo guitar. Just recorded right into the session. So what I wanted to do was make sure that that piano riff was in the spotlight. But so I'm going to do a little bit of layering, and this is going to help bring that riff a little bit more into the center. So with the piano, I went ahead and used a synth, and my choice for going to this specific synth or looking for a patch was I wanted something a little bit more shimmery, a little bit more brighter. So I went with the Artura Analog Lab, which here's the plugin here. And this is basically like a culmination of all their synth plugins just being able to be access to a portal here. And this is a organ, the Farfisa organ, and it's just a patch that I came across, and it's got this nice little shimmer to it. So I'm going to layer that with the piano. And I'm going to layer that with this as well. So this is another synth here. It's Absinthe. And now this is really tucked in there, but this is adding some stereo atmospheric stuff along with these parts. And then we have a pad underneath that. And for that, I'm using the Serum. And this is just a basic synth with just 2 oscillators set to saw and with the filter on here. So that's playing the chords. And then I've recorded that into another track as audio. And I've just transposed those same chords that we hear here an octave higher. And this is really, all these are just to give more shimmer. So now I'm going to go ahead and play this with the other elements. So it just helps support that main piano line really well. Now here's another song from the EP called You Don't Know Me. And again, same principles here. I'm going to play you the elements where we left off with the demo, the rough sketch, and then talk about the elements I added afterwards so that we've got this nice transition from the demo and yet enhancing it so that we're not taking away the vibe and feel from the demo. So we've got the drums, and we've got this bass part, and the electric guitar part playing the main riff, and the bass just following along. And the pad. Now these are the elements here that were just left alone. So once again, like we did with the other song, I've gone ahead and layered it with an extra kick and snare. And that's just to reinforce the overall drum break that we've got going on there. But now, as opposed to just layering it, layering the pads and such as we did with the Myth of You, we've actually have more of a call and response addition here. So we have the main riff, and I went ahead and added like a bell patch as a call and response. What I mean by that is you're going to hear this, and then there's another element in the song that plays, and then it responds to that. So there's a pickup note here, and I'll take it from there. So that acts as this nice call and response part. And then another part to emphasize the call and response is a little sample here that I call the little guy. It's just got this little kid sample. Now I'm using this as a call and response mostly not with the guitar, but more with the actual vocal melody. So I'll play you the vocal melody and the drum groove along and with the bass. You don't know me. I'm heading back where I belong. You don't know me. Oh. So you can see here I'm heading back where I belong, rest, and that's where these guys come in. You don't know me. Oh. I'm heading back where I belong. You don't know me. Oh. I'm heading back where I belong. You don't know me. Oh. I'm heading back. So the beginning of this call and response part is really kind of helping that you don't know me, and then the kids, that little guy is emphasizing the end part of that phrase. And then we have a couple pads there, just kind of layering from the initial pads that are happening here. So let me just solo the pads. And all together now. Something that I thought was really cool in this song was to add some atmospheric loop in there. This takes me back to an old Radiohead's record from the album OK Computer. And there was just some kids in the playground just looped and had a specific timing to it. So I've got some background noise with some kids on a playground. And that's just adding some nice texture to everything. And then we also have these nice little transition effects, some sweeps and things like that you can add at the beginning of specific sections, whether it's chorus, verse, or things like that. And it just helps lift up as unique individual sections or phrases of a song. These are also good to just copy over and reverse so that you can use them to actually build up tension here. So I'm going to unwarp this and drag this over here. So it adds this nice little tension to this. I'm also doing the same thing with the reverse cymbal here, reverse crash. So those are cool transition effects that start to build up tension and then give that nice release at the chorus section there. Now here we have a different approach for this song. This was the first idea that we started working on when Graham and I worked together in our writing session. And as opposed to just having a rough sketch of an idea and then coming back and adding production to it, a lot of time was spent on the sound design at the very front end of this, meaning that a lot of the tweaking and sound design stuff and shaping the sounds were a big part of being inspired to even then down the road write lyrics or melodies for this. So in this song, The Good Life, we have a pretty sparse arrangement here where it's just a riff and some chords and really just empty space for the melody or the vocal melody to kind of go through. And that just carries all the way through, and still we start to add a little bit more tom work and things like that. Tom, works with the drums and stuff like that. And so that's where a lot of the tweaking was taking place, and just kind of coming up with the right sound. Because I couldn't find a loop, or I couldn't really just program it right the way I envisioned it or heard it, that we both kind of heard it in our heads. So there's a couple things going on here. So first I have a live tom part. So I played that in by using Contact, and there's an Abbey Road 60s drum library that I'm using. And I just love the tom sounds of that. And then I went ahead and layered that with another kit. But this is another live drum kit by Addictive Drums. So we've got 2 drum kits here. And they're both playing 2 different patterns. So I didn't copy the pattern here. So you can hear there's a difference in the pattern. And then I've got another tom layer here. But this is just an actual tom sample, just to help accent certain parts of this rhythm. And then I actually have a drum break or a tom loop here that I've kind of chopped up and put together. And then we have a snap happening to accent the 2 and 4. So this was being structured and put all together to really just create the overall vibe. So it was just kind of tweaking and putting all this stuff together on the spot while Graham was just coming up with some melody ideas. And as we move over to the big chorus that happens here, we start to incorporate some more. I've got a nice little kick that I put here to add some extra punch and thump. And then we have a big open snare. And then here are some more drums. So there's, as you can see here, there's just layer upon layer. And really all this is just to create a well overall balance, just this monstrous warehouse drums. Almost kind of like, 5 people on 5 different drum sets just playing the same pattern. And I incorporate another live drum set here. And this one is by BFD. So this is the BFD drum set here. And more. So as you can see, it's really just stacking all of these just to get this big drum warehouse type sound. And then we have a nice 808, in which I'm distorting. And another bass part here. And I'm using the serum for that. Now, all this, as you can see, this is just all about just piling, element on top of element on top of element just to get the big sound. But there can be a problem where you do this way too much and you start to overproduce or just becomes way too saturated. So this is just meticulously, everything is just well balanced here. So I'm not like blasting everything to 0 dB. I'm just adding and tucking and adding all these elements so I get a nice overall balance. We have this track that's called Crazy, and this is another distorted sound here. Now I found this from the arcade plugin that I've already featured throughout this course, and it just had this cool distorted stab. So what I did was once I recorded it as audio, I was able to pitch that stab up and down to match the different tonal pitches that we're doing here. And then we have our synth, our main bass synth that's just playing throughout that. Now the synth for this is using Absinthe 5, and the patch is called Screaming Leader, and that's just nothing done. I just went to that patch and used this. Now I put this down as a demo for the guitars to do. So I really felt like, man, the guitar should be playing this riff, and so we hear that right over here. So I have Graham place the guitars. So layering that with the synth. And then everybody together.
Hey friend, this is Graham here from recordingrevolution.com.
And this is Ill Factor from beatacademy.com.
And we want to tell you about something super, super rad that we're doing. We love working on music together. We did a couple singles together and we decided, hey, selfishly, let's make a whole EP together.
Yeah.
And then we thought about like documenting it.
Yeah.
So you could see the whole process. But then we wanted to take it a step further. We like, wait, we can't just document this. Let's teach you how we actually create EPs step by step by step. And we want to bring you into that process.
Yeah, so we want to invite you into the whole process of creating an EP. And not just creating it, but we also want to walk you through what happens when you're done with that EP. How do you get it out into the world? And how do you actually build traction with the music that you've created?
So from no song idea to polishing up a final master to releasing it digitally to get it on Spotify and all the other platforms to getting your first 1,000 streams online, this program is going to walk you through our step-by-step process. So if you're a singer-songwriter or in a band and you just want that little push or kick in the butt to actually release some new music this year and actually get some traction with it, then this program is for you. Just hit the link below this video to sign up for the waitlist so you get first dibs and first access to when this course drops. We can't wait to bring you into the studio and show you our process.
Super excited. We'll see you there.